Hello, everyone, and welcome to the after show. Thank you all for joining me. I have to thank Kitty too. That this was actually her. She's like, "Is there going to be an after show?" I was like, "What? Why would there be an after show? It's a good idea." So obviously, none of us thought of it. Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Suris, for staying a little extra. I think there were a lot of people who were really interested in what you had to say and who wanted to chat with you. And of course, everyone can always go to your channel. But while we've got you here, we're gonna let people hang out and chat with you. Anyone who wants to queue up to come on in and hang out with us and Cirrus for a little bit, you can either let us know in the chat, or you can go to our Discord and reach us through that. And Dave McGinnis will let you in. I think we've already got a number of people who are eager to meet Cirrus and talk a little bit. So we'll just sort of, I think, start with
what the hell are you guys thinking? What is wrong? Sorry.
That was a really good impression of Ocean. You two have been together way too long. And now
you say that there's a lot of really weird fan art that exists.
That never even crossed my mind. That's unfortunate. That's an image I didn't need.
Or did you?
Oh God, no, I really didn't. Thank you though. I appreciate it.
You sure?
Yes, I'm sure. I'm very sure. Thank you.
Okay.
You can mute now. You know that little button there with the microphone and the line through it? If you could hit that for me, I'd really appreciate it.
Just Amazon them a ball gag. It'll work better.
Yeah, they already have my address for direct shipping on ball gags. They know who I am.
They know that do you power through them that much?
Well,
are you like a size queen but in the mouth?
Well, they have a lot more utility, I think, than they're given credit for. But that's another show.
You're not supposed. Okay, Nick, you're not supposed to string a wire through them and try to make anal beads. They make anal beads on their own.
Yeah,
you don't need to DIY them.
Well, no, they don't call me Nick Iver for nothing. I can, I've never seen the anal beads. They're just the right size. Okay, so how long did it take? Could somebody run the clock and see how long it took for this to get completely off the rails?
Been an after party?
Yeah, that's what I'm starting to think. That's what I was.
Fuck.
I was sitting there going, this really should have been an after party. I think we're gonna dial it back 300 or 400 notches, and we're going to start again.
Are you sure about that, though?
I'm sure. Now, normally, when it gets a little more colorful, we give that to Angar's channel, so that if anyone gets deplatformed, it's him. That was a strategic decision on our part. Oh, so who do we have in the room?
I don't actually. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just curious to know who we had in the room. I don't even know.
Well, me.
I knew you were in the room, and then I think we've got Sammy Jenkins. I think is in the room. Who else? Mm-hmm. Just say hello and.
Of course, this guy named Suris. I don't know who he is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Honestly, neither do I.
Okay.
Is that some metaphysical? I don't even know who I am anymore.
No, you're okay. Look, if you want to get metaphysical, the operative question is, I don't know why I am anymore.
That's a fair point. You're not going to lecture me on metaphysics, are you?
No, I'm not. Look, I did a debate recently with a pre-supper, and I really don't want to get into anything that makes me remember that I did that.
Who was that?
Eli Alea, I think was his name. I can't remember. Yeah. He's been on against T-Jump and Skylar Fiction and a bunch of other people. He's really easy to put into a situation where he says possibly the worst and most horrible things, but he doesn't realize that he's said them. You can get him into a situation where he says that, yes, if God were to eternally torture my child for from dusk until dawn, that would be okay and just. And then he says it with a straight face, smiling, and I'm just like, did you not hear the words that came out of your mouth? Or then he'll say something like he doesn't have a sense of intuition that says that somebody being forced into doing something without their consent is wrong. And I'm just like, I want you to dial back maybe 4 sentences to realize that you just accidentally justified rape with a smile on your face. Okay, yeah, you did it. You did it.
And we also have Jim, who I'd love to try to get in here if that's at all possible. He's in the.
Dave's working on it right now.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, so Jim, if you're listening, Dave's working on it. So we'll see you next week.
Yeah. There is one Dave we can trust to put a show together, and it is not this one.
Ouch.
Hey, who do you think the other Dave how to put together shows? Cirrus? I don't know. Who could that be?
Cirrus is fucking dropping tactical nukes left and
I
right.
know. Jesus, Cirrus.
Like, I have a whole new respect for you, sir. Like, not gonna lie. Like, anybody that can nuke like that, I mean, bravo. Bravo.
If only the nukes were accurate.
Aww.
Well, they're nukes. They don't need to.
They don't have to be accurate. They're nukes.
That's
The idea of using a nuclear device with even a modicum of payload is that they're able to actually like cause enough damage in a large enough area to where accuracy is a non-issue.
I know, but if you're aiming at the next country over and you set it off on your doorstep, you've done it wrong.
I mean, yes, you're gonna have to. Considering that I'm not currently turning into a ghoul and being part of a notoriously dying franchise, I think that I have not actually detonated a nuclear device anywhere near myself.
But what if that country is right on your doorstep, like Nebraska?
Yeah, no, Fallout 76 is not on my doorstep. It's really fucking far away.
Yeah, you're closer to my neck of the woods. I'm in Florida.
All right, so we just had Sammy Jenkins joined. Jim is still. Did Jim get in?
Yeah, Jim's here. We've got Sammy Jenkins. We've got Emmett Rose, Kyle Frick, and this guy named Nicholas Lamar Soutter. I don't know who the hell that guy is.
Yeah, they always call him
let him
Sutter or Side. I don't know. It's scraping the bottom of the barrel. So, Jim, what was it like when you got that DM? I gotta know what was going through your head when he's just like, oh, by the way, I may be going out and stealing a person.
Well, so I knew some of the events leading up to it. Like I knew the situation that she was in vaguely, just based on things that Suris had talked about previously and things that I was privy to. But I mean, it's a situation I've been put in before. It's one of those, where you kind of wait up all night, just like refreshing, just like waiting to see if they've said anything else. And then when Suris finally made the announcement that they were back and she was safe, then I was, oh, okay, I can go to sleep now.
But we managed to stop off and pick up a little food on the way. We were just chillaxing, hanging out. Like I've been refreshing for 12 hours.
Right. No, Suris definitely didn't leave anybody hanging. He let us all know, that they were safe, that everything went relatively well. And I believe it was the next day you put out a video, Suris, about the kidnapping.
Yes, the day afterwards, I wanted to get a video out because one, I wasn't in the habit of making them early, so not getting a video out was a bit of an issue. Two, the other problem was that I wanted to make sure that when the video did come out, everybody didn't have artificial emotions when they talked about what happened and what went down. I wanted that to be as authentic as possible. Because I'm used to just being myself on camera, but that's not to say everybody else is. Somebody's banging on something a lot.
Yeah, I hear that. Somebody hanging pictures.
No, I have no idea what that was.
A new hammer prop? Were you feeling left over?
I'm feeling inadequate after the last hammer.
I'm sorry. That was that must have been me. I was just tapping out my bowl. It's a huge piece. I apologize. No, I'm just messing around. No, it's not.
Oh man. Well, thank you, Kitty, for the suggestion. I can't believe I didn't. Of course, I guess I did have it in mind. It's on my channel. I don't know what's going on. Why are people bugging me with real world stuff? I don't want to think.
To be fair, I wasn't the only one to suggest it, and I might not have actually been the first. So I would have to go back to the chat to check. But I know at least one other person said it around the same time I did.
No, there was a number of people asking for it, and we sort of spaced the after show on the last one too. So we're still just getting used to having it. I really like the idea of doing it, but we're still kind of working out the kinks. Not that anybody noticed, because it only took 2 hours to set up.
Damn, man, you guys the shots are going down around here. Just let me know when I can hit the mattresses. Okay?
Well, and I guess something was happening on the I didn't catch it. Something was happening on the live chat with Jim, or was Jim getting into trouble? When is Jim not getting into trouble?
Right.
Oh no,
Honestly,
we were
he's
just
a little mad at me.
I think we were just discussing Jim's his heightened level of stash food. So
I don't think that was
Jim's a very sensitive mustache, and it's okay.
Oh, it's yeah. Well, he's going to shave it off at 1,000 subs.
Yes, I am.
Anybody wants to see?
Don't do it.
So I'm just going to go ahead and let everybody know that from what I understand, Jim is a compulsive liar, so he's actually not going to shave the mustache off at that point. He's just going to say the mustache comes part and parcel.
We'll just have to find out. I mean, we'll just have to get me to 1,000 subs and find out.
Alternatively, what's going to happen is Jim is going to record a video where he attempts to shave his mustache, and instead we see a set of trimmers on the ground broken into pieces. They tried very hard to break the stash, but the stash broke them instead.
Yeah, the stash is going to fight back.
That I
would believe.
Twice before, and it's actually really difficult. You have to sneak up on it. I find the best hours between 2 and 4 a.m.
Well, I was going to ask. I know you're pretty skilled. I was going to say, Jim, could you taxidermy the stash for us?
Okay. This is definitely.
That's actually not a bad idea. That is not a bad idea. Like wax it really well with super glue before I shave it, and then shave it all off in one piece. That's not a bad idea.
I actually had thought this out, so that was partially my plan. But I was thinking you could use that gotta be glued glue stuff, right? Glue the stash in place, right? How you would style it, and then you get the straight razor, like the old school, how they would shave it, and then that way you can just take it off like little by little, and it'll just come off in one. Yeah. So and then you're skilled with it, okay? So you can just take it off, right? And then we can put it on a Jim facsimile and auction it off for charity.
That's not a bad idea, but I don't know anybody who would buy my mustache. Like, that's weird.
You don't know. I think I could sell that thing for good money.
Actually, that's a lie.
I know folks that would snuggle up to that at night.
I'm fairly certain you can get at least one person that would be willing to take the hairs of your mustache and mix them in with a bit of silicone in order to make either a dildo or a fleshlight that contained Essence of Jim.
Okay,
I'm fairly certain
I just want to point out.
do that.
I just want to point out to my co-host here.
I know where you're going.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's more than crystal. It's clear. It's really quite clear. Thank you.
You can get your mustache butt plugs in time.
So does that package come with the USB stick that has Jim's voice saying, "Can you feel me? Can you feel me inside of you?"
Okay, it's not going to come with a USB
This
stick.
is about cults.
Has anybody here? Everybody here's at least somewhat familiar with Toy Story, right?
Edition?
Well, I mean, I don't know. Does the cult does my following fit the bite model? I don't think it does.
No. You. There's a cult. I agree. When you said about nobody would buy your stash, like 3 people just came straight to mind that would absolutely buy it.
I'm pretty sure is emotionally manipulating people too.
I'd also be frankly I'd be willing to like buy it and then put it on like a just a bust of you and then ship it to SJ.
Oh, wow.
I'm really tempted.
She's probably watching this.
So wait, is it so? If you do that, you need to also put in some of your like hairs from your head, and then just send it over and say, okay, look, here's how you can effectively make clones of all the people who've kicked your ass.
Well, I like the idea of like using super glue before and like styling my mustache like I normally would, and then just cutting it off in one piece, or actually be 2 pieces. But yeah. Maybe like frame it and just like hang it back behind me, and then at 5,000 subs, I'll do it again, and then I'll frame that one.
Yeah, well, that's why nobody wants to. I think you've got this backwards. You're not going to get 1,000 subs with who you're going to shave your stash. Everyone wants you to keep that thing. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm doing it at 1,000 subs and not 500, because then nobody would watch me without a mustache. But with 1,000 subs, at least I could like coast on that until my mustache grows back.
Yeah, no, whenever you're on a stream, my own wife, she's sitting there and she's like, "Oh, you can't shave that." I was like, "Yeah, I know, right?"
Oh, I've already decided that, like, other than that video, nobody is seeing me without my mustache. I'm gonna have like pre-recorded videos.
You're gonna have like for like a month. Oh my god!
Which takes 3 weeks, so it's like 6 videos. I think that's good. That's fine. It'll be fine.
We're gonna have a way to do
Jim,
like a pre-recorded segment with you.
So Jim, here's your how you monetize this, right? So okay, here you go. Right.
Puff
So
knows.
here's how
Puff
you
knows what he's
monetize
doing.
it. Right. So it's the 1,000 subscriber goal, right? But you lock the video either on your Patreon, or what I suggest is just go ahead and put it up on your Pornhub page. It's a $5,
Oh, but that's wrong though. It's for my subscribers, not for my Patreons.
No, the video you actually shaving it off though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Like
Your
the whole
Patrons
point
are all
of
on Pornhub?
subscribing to me is because they want to see me
Okay,
shave
the
my mustache. I would
ASMR,
hope
the
that's not the whole
ASMR
point,
of it.
but
All
I
right.
think you might need to. So there's a thing you got to remember here. Be careful how you actually market yourself on Pornhub, because I'm friends with Logic, and I know he put his channel on Pornhub. And as a direct result of that, if you type in, like, seriously, don't do this like showing this on the screen. No, I'm dead serious. Listen.
Okay. Yep.
Go to Pornhub. I kid you not. Go to Pornhub. Type in Logic into the search bar, and Pornhub does not allow Logic as a searchable term anymore. It will automatically default it to licked. It is the only word I have found that Pornhub does not accept. But it strictly, because Logic put his channel on Pornhub once, it does not allow for Logic as a term.
That is
kid you not.
fascinating.
Check this out. It auto-corrected Logic into long dicked.
What did he do?
He just put his content there.
He uploaded atheist skeptic content onto Pornhub, and they didn't want it.
He broke their algorithm.
Yeah.
I tried searching it, and it auto-corrected Logic into long dicked.
I've never seen a terms of service contract that said you must be uploading porno to be on our platform. If you're not going to put up pornography, we just don't want you around.
I just tried it,
Okay,
and
it feels weird. I'm Xing out now.
It auto-corrected me to locked. It used to auto-correct me to licked when I used to try this maneuver. Basically, it will auto-correct you completely away from trying to look up Logic. You will never be able to look up Logic in a Pornhub search bar. That is a legacy that he gets to hold under his cap.
And why is that? I don't understand.
Can you use the old school search tactic of putting a space before the last D?
Or using the actual address bar.
But how did that come to be like a banned search result? I don't get it.
Because Logic. Okay, so there was a time that for the longest time, YouTube has been throttling Logic's channel, and not allowing him to actually grow, and it sucked because it was like around the time that he actually moved into doing YouTube full time. YouTube started throttling him. As a result of them throttling him, he basically went on and said, okay, what if I just started uploading my content everywhere else? Fuck you, YouTube. So he threw it onto Pornhub, he threw it onto BitChute, all kinds of places that would accept any type of content. And in so doing, he may have angered the Pornhub gods. Because they did not like his content being there as opposed. Which is weird because there's fucking RuneScape Let's Plays on Pornhub.
Well,
I'm sorry, what?
I'm dead set. Just look up RuneScape on Pornhub. There are Let's Plays of it on Pornhub for some reason.
But to be honest,
I just want to point out that our very moderated discussion where people are supposed to be, coming in to ask you questions about, cults and things, has you instructing people to go to Pornhub to look things up. Just pointing this out.
So I'm just going to go ahead and
emotional manipulation that Jim's mustache is capable of.
So I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. If this is a level of madness that you can't take, then never go to any of my live streams ever. There was a time where I may have accidentally created during a live stream that was a fundraiser for somebody who was on the verge of homelessness. We were doing a fundraiser for them to get them out. of that situation. And in doing that fundraiser, we actually had a part where the stream essentially folded in on itself, and then it did it again and again, and it did it infinitely. And the quality, like the video quality of the stream, went down each time, but it went down at such a slow increment that you couldn't tell. It was like going from 1080p to 1077p to 1075p until, like, by the time 20 minutes had passed, we were down to 480p. Another 10 minutes passed. Okay, we're down to like early YouTube 360p quality. And then, like, later on, we got to the quality you expected from an old 1950s television.
Eventually, it was just the resolution of an icon.
And to eventually, we got to just like, this is now no longer a stream. This is a thumbnail. So that's a thing that has happened before on my channel, and it's liable to happen again eventually. Deal with it.
Thank you for setting the bar so low.
Yes.
I was gonna say when you're talking about that stream where you were discussing where the gentleman that had no he basically supported rape and all that, you know, he was like the one you were just talking about where he was like I don't have a compass that tells me you can't own somebody or force somebody to do something against their will. That one turned into, out of nowhere, you guys were discussing Dragon Ball Z voice characters.
Yeah.
Was this on Modern Day? Where was this? Well, you haven't been on Modern Database there. So.
No, this is on Suris's channel on the same stream.
Okay.
And this was a outgrowth of a conversation he had, I think, 2 days before.
Nick, I was on Modern Day Debate like a week ago. What?
Oh, I
think stepped into a landmine.
Different than that, off of live streams, and you are sadly mistaken because this is Suris 24/7, 365.
Yeah, Jim has had the unfortunate circumstance of actually hanging out with me in real life, so he can attest that nothing changes. This is just
it's great. I love really it all for when you stiff fingered my throat hole.
Whoa!
I'm sorry. What now?
It wasn't a stiff finger, Jim. Your eyes were closed.
It's all pink shame.
If he can't tell the difference, I think that's not something I'd be bragging about. But that's
I have photographic evidence.
Considering the topic that we've gone to, I'm curious if Intime's actually going to do like an in-depth into like kink lifestyles, BDSM, and like common misconceptions.
Well, I think we're definitely going to do another polyamory show because I think we wanted to sort of do more with that, and we were thinking of actually having Suris on for that, so we would bring him back to discuss that. I don't think we had actually discussed any of the other lifestyles. I think that's the only one that we actually had on the books, but I think that's certainly worth looking into. Hold on one sec, because we've got a couple people who are requesting links, and I have to get them. Well, you're going to be on the Patreon hangout tomorrow, so you can bring that up.
Just remember, anybody that's in the live chat, if you jump into the Discord, that's where you can get a link.
Well, I think they wanted a Patreon link in the Discord, is what they were saying.
Oh, okay.
I just put it into the live chat as well.
Oh, perfect. Well, everyone's way ahead of me. That's all right. So yeah, no, I think that's gonna be an interesting topic. We're gonna have to figure out who we would want as a guest for that. I also want to bring in we've got a very long list of guests that we're looking forward to, including
what specific topics would you be wanting to bring up in the kink episode?
She just pitched it, so I hadn't even considered it, but I think she's talking about maybe the normalization of kink behaviors, or kink fetishes.
That is, say you're talking to the atheist skeptic YouTuber who literally has an affiliate link to DDLG Playground in his descriptions.
I don't talk about it much, but sexuality in general is one of my big fascinations. It's something I study constantly. So it would be a show I'd be really interested in doing. Not only just kinks in general, but kinks and what drives them, and what what leads a person into a specific kink. I think it's really fascinating stuff, and I don't think it's talked about enough. And I do think that there is some call for normalization.
And the differences between kinks and fetishes.
A friend of mine, Silver Lena, she has a channel on YouTube that's devoted to BDSM. She's a member of the BDSM community and very, very knowledgeable and really an all-around very, very sweet woman. It's Silver Lena, Layna.
Well, and the other thing that I think is worth discussing is our values in regards to sex, and also as compared to sex and violence. If there's a little nudity in a film, it may get an R rating, but you can kill a lot of people in the same film and PG-13. And why is it that we are afraid of sex? Why do we have to hide sexuality? Why is it that it's a big deal that the president had sex with a porn star? I honestly, the only reason I'm concerned about the legality of a number of things he did, but I honestly don't care, and I don't understand why anybody would care. But that's a huge thing in the United States, and I understand we're descended from Puritans, and there's a history to it, but it's phenomenally unhealthy. I think we're killing ourselves with our really regressive attitudes towards sex, and I think it's not healthy at all. And I honestly, I'll tell you, I think it's probably got just something to do with the gun violence in this, the gun violence has something to do with that in this country too. You get repressed, people start acting out in all sorts of interesting ways.
I mean, we literally had incels murder people with a van, and then that was a thing that happened a few years ago.
Yeah, well, that was in Canada.
That would be another topic to broach: incels, MGTOW, and the like.
I would avoid it.
I think we just need to institute a mandatory buddy system. Like if you notice your friend exhibits these characteristics, you have to wingman them.
Honestly, we should probably
at least twice a week.
We should probably focus more on legalizing prostitution. Set it up like the porn industry: mandatory screenings, background checks for the Johns, give them a safe place to do their job, and it would also cut down on the black market trade of women. Whenever you legalize something, you limit the power the black market for that something has. Same thing would happen if we were to legalize drugs. The cartels would lose power, and I could go on for hours, but I'm not going to take all the time.
Legal in Canada, fortunately.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that's definitely a big thing in the city I come from, Las Vegas. It's a big problem is human trafficking for the sex trade. So
you get another issue with that here in Atlanta as well. Atlanta's a pretty big hub for that shit.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you, sir, because I noticed the way that the religious communities are structured down there, it's almost like a playbook for how to set up a cult.
So I can comment on the religious communities that I either was associated with or knew of from Pensacola, but I'm largely unfamiliar with most of the ones here in Georgia because I moved here as an adult for work. As a result, most of my affiliation with religious industries had already subsided by the time I got here, so I never actually got to learn any of this shit from here. Whereas when I grew up around religious societies all the time. So I don't know how much of a playbook many of these places are because I just don't see it. Though I did actually consider hopping in a couple of the churches at some point to see how they are structured, but that would require me having a GoPro and far more time than I have.
Oh, sorry, I'm having computer difficulties here. You're right, Ansgar. I'm going to need a new computer at some point if we're going to do this.
Seriously, man.
Seriously. Are you doing this on a laptop or are you doing this on a desktop?
I'm doing this on
He's doing it on a broken old desktop.
It's a reasonably powerful desktop, but between running 4 monitors and loads of services and every kind of software you can imagine, it needs a complete
okay, Suris, what you and I would consider reasonably powered is not what he means when he says reasonably powered.
He's got the
I was going to say,
handy.
Yeah.
Nick, it's never been more affordable, right? Than like right now to build a pretty powerful Ryzen streaming machine.
Like, I'm just gonna move my
I
camera
don't even remember what's in this thing.
You guys see that beautiful heatsink?
and just point it over at my machine right now.
Yeah,
I need one so bad. Like I have a really good laptop, like a badass laptop, but it's still no substitute for like a decent PC. But I have no clue where to even start.
There are some laptops that are as powerful as a pretty mid-range, like high-end gaming PC. In fact, they have desktop. They have desktop components in them.
But the price,
I don't even remember what I put in this thing.
Yeah, that's the thing was the price. Like mine is like 1,100 brand new.
Well, yeah, to pay. I mean, to pay for. Okay, my PC that I built. Well, I didn't build it. I let Alienware build it for me, but I saved for over 10 years. A couple bucks in a drawer every paycheck until for over 10 years. But that thing cost me, including the warranty, because I need the warranty because I can't be out of a computer. Including that, it was like $6,000.
Yeah, I mean, but for the price that I paid for my laptop, though, I mean, I could have gotten a really good PC. I could have built a really good PC.
Oh yeah, you pay for portability.
I traded a car for mine. That's the story of this PC. I literally, I have a computer tech guy who does work for me because he likes my channel and he lives close. And his daughter actually needed a car to drive to test out. We had just bought a new car. So we sold him the old car, and in exchange, he built this machine. And this machine is not the most powerful thing, but I'm fairly certain, based on the performance that Nick is telling me his is having, that it could at least kick the crap out of his.
Well, I look at it like this. My rig, I built it. It's probably $850, $950 when I built it. I could rebuild this rig right now, except for the graphics card, for probably $350 or $400.
And you could just chuck like a cheapo 2 gig NVIDIA in there just to flesh the thing out afterwards.
Oh, even better than that, Suris. Right now, you could probably get a 980 Ti used for less than $100.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
About $95. You can get a 980 Ti used, and you know that's a screamer of a graphics card.
I guess the cryptocurrency market tanked so hard that graphics cards are no longer worth gold.
Well, no, that's not what did it. What did it was the 1660 Ti. It killed the price of like lower tier cards.
Yeah, the crypto people all moved on to the newer models.
See, I'm trying to remember what I put in this thing. It has been a while.
Have you considered going to the search bar and typing in system so you can look at the hardware components in your PC without opening up your PC?
Well, I didn't want to do it from that. I just went into I could do it from the command prompt if I had to. Thank you, Suris.
I'm betting money
I
with
was
the DDR3
gifted.
system.
I was actually gifted. My partner, he got me a new computer back in April, and I had basically cannibalized my old graphics card for it. And I was telling a good friend of mine who lives in London that, yeah, I was trying to save up because I wanted to get a VR headset and I needed to get a graphics card that could run it. Well, he basically surprised me with a new graphics card. Like the same day he had a trampoline delivered for my son, there was a GeForce RTX 2060. Yeah, 2060. Waiting on my doorstep. And I was like, well, that's a thing that happened. I had no idea, like literally none. So like it was a really good day for me and my son.
That's awesome.
I have the AMD Ryzen 5 6-core processor. And
you have a 1600 or 2600?
2600.
That's what I got. That thing is a beast for the price.
Oh, it is
okay.
great.
Since we're all talking about components, All right, here we go. Not to make anyone feel bad. I've got the i9 7900X overclocked to about 5.1 gigahertz. It's a 20 core, I believe, with two 1080 Ti's at the moment and 64 gigs of really, really fast RAM. And then I've got the NVMe solid state drive as my main drive with two 10 gigabyte storage drives attached.
How big is the solid
10
state?
terabytes?
Sorry, two 10 terabyte storage drives.
Those are purples, right?
No, they're just basic crap little 10 terabyte because I don't need to access them fast.
No. I think the color code would be a Western Digital purple.
Yeah, I think so. It's Western Digital, and then the NVMe drive is half a terabyte.
But right there, Ansgar's got in my opinion, what is the still standing best graphics card you can get on the market, which is the GTX 1080 Ti. Yeah, I know the 2080 beats it, but the 1080 Ti for what it did was when it came out if I had known when it came out it was only going to be $550, $600 for like a month, I would have sold my body to buy as many as I could. I would have been in an alley just doing whatever I could for GTX 1080 Ti's, man.
See, I'm just sitting here running GeForce GTX 780, so I'm running several years out of date, but it's still functional for what I need.
And the case that I got, I absolutely fell in love with. It's the Fractal Design Divine R6 with the black brushed aluminum. It's so pretty. Like if I could move my camera and get it to look at the inside of my computer, it's so fucking pretty. And I've got, my RAM actually has LED lights on it. So I have it doing my fucking, LGBT pride, like doing a wave rainbow. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, right now I'm waiting on my money to come in so I can get a P400A, the white case with the because they got the mesh front now. Mm-hmm. So they got rid of the inner filter. So the mesh front on the front, it's like they made it so it catches the light from the RGB lights or from the fans. So it kind of like it does the pattern that the fans would do across the front of the mesh.
And then I kind of went overboard thinking the bigger the better when it came to my CPU cooling fan, since I was doing air cooling, and I got the Noctua NHD15. It's 140 millimeters. It's fucking huge. But my PC runs really, really cold. I mean, and it's silent. You can literally have your ear right next to it with the case open and you hear nothing. It is amazing.
That's the same way that I'm not running anywhere near the level of components, but I am obviously running, you saw before, a fairly sizable fan on my CPU and heatsink.
For me, I've got the liquid.
Tell them the story about that heatsink.
This thing actually has a story with it.
The story with it is that Resident Evil 2 melted my computer when I tried to live stream, and it still does. It just does it not quite as frequently. But in trying to run it, Puffaluppagus actually said, "Screw it, I'm sending you a heatsink." Now, the funny thing is, though, when I tried to install the heatsink, the computer would not turn on once I installed the heatsink that Puffaluppagus sent me. So that made me panic. But later on, I realized that all that had happened was that I plugged my motherboard back in wrong. I'd swapped two cables around, so my motherboard was not actually being supplied power. That was the problem.
And Sir's all humble. He had picked out like the cheapest, like the cheapest, just like mundane looking, and it only had like red LEDs. And I was like, that looks so boring. Like this looks so boring. I was like, man, here, put this one on there. It's like just like $5 more, and it looks so much more jazzy.
Yeah, the thing is, I was concerned when it came in whether or not I would actually be able to get it in the case, but it turns out that I was actually able to get it in the case just fine. It's literally about maybe a millimeter away from the glass panel, so it fits in just barely.
That's what we call forced air cooling, man. Don't worry about it.
No, it has made sure that my computer does run smoother. And right after we got that, we also picked up more RAM because I was running off 8 gigabytes of RAM at the time, realizing slowly that was not adequate. We went ahead and upgraded to 16.
Aren't you running like a 1400G or a 2400G?
The RAM?
No. Like your processor's a 2200G or a 2400G?
Processor's an AMD Ryzen 5 1500X quad core.
Oh, okay. So yeah, okay. At least you don't have the graphics chip in there, but still, yeah.
Yeah, the graphic. If you're not using a laptop and you have a processor and you have a choice to get the one that has the graphics chip or not, the graphics chip is for laptops. Don't use it if you don't have a laptop.
Or unless you're making a media PC just for your living room.
Yeah, if you're using a media PC so you want to save money and not have to get a video card, yeah, that works too. Then again, you can get a little 2 gigabyte video card for $40 off Amazon. So even then, the money that you're spending on it might be better spent just getting the fucking dinky video card.
Yeah, and right now you can get the same Ryzen 5 2600 I paid $250 for a year and a half ago. You can get it right now for about $150, $130 used.
So Lady Starfire said, hey, would Suris be willing to answer how many cults he is familiar with?
How many cults I'm familiar with?
Mm-hmm.
I am somewhat, granted, most of this is like very cursory knowledge, somewhat familiar with Heaven's Gate, Jonestown, the Moonies, Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, NIFB, IFB, Seventh-day insofar as Seventh-day Adventists could be considered a cult. I think they skirt sometimes.
What about Pentecostalism?
Pentecostalism, several Pentecostal churches operate very much like cults. I'm willing to call many of them cults.
Like UPC specifically. Or UPCI, they've been called.
UPCI?
United Pentecostal Church International.
Yeah, my brain was like Universal Pentecostal and International, and then I was like, that's not how that goes.
That's the church that I preached in. It's fairly new. It's only been around since the 40s.
I'm somewhat familiar with Pentecostalism, mainly their issues with like appropriating certain verses in Matthew in order to get people to kill them. Handle snakes and shit. Also the entire issue of speaking in tongues. There's also
I actually visited a couple Pentecostal churches. It was interesting to say the least.
Most of them are based around the second chapter of Acts and the gift of speaking in tongues and the baptism of the Holy Spirit and all that.
There's also
stuff.
another.
But it very, 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 very much fits the Bite model. I think you'd be interested in doing that if you're into the whole cult thing.
There's another cult that I've done some research into, but I haven't actually figured out what the name of it is for some reason. But I did a video on them a while back. Sorry, I'm having acid reflux right now. There's a video that me and Raz did a decent while back about this cult in Nigeria. They're a Christian cult, and the leader of it, he frequently gets lesbians in his church, and he forces them to be straight by like physically hitting them repeatedly. And a lot of it you can easily tell is staged because they're also a televised church. But enough of it is scary that somebody would think that, hey, I'm going to walk into this church, I'm not straight, and I'm going to get physically assaulted.
Yeah, it's one of those churches that Trump would like to go to because I've seen videos of it, and they literally grab women by the pussy to cure them of their ailments. And I think, is that the same one, Sirs, that also supposedly raised that guy from the dead, and they have a live video of it, or is that a different one?
No, this is the one that is most famous for having a little girl that came in who was demon possessed,
Right.
And then there was a follow-up show where she was no longer demon possessed, where she had been cured by the church. Let me.
Is this the same?
We
like
we
one of the
actually have a
same
couple.
churches? Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
No,
No,
I
you
was
go
just
ahead.
wondering if it was one of the same ones that they basically, convince AIDS patients to not take their, antiretrovirals or basically their AIDS medications.
I have not seen any of their particular sermons that deal with AIDS personally. I do know that they blame it on homosexuality exclusively, but I have not seen them do any sermons on curing it via the gospel truth and ignoring medication. That said, I did link, if it'll allow me to link, the video that I did on it. It's with the leader of the church is named TV Joshua. There's another small cult of personality that I covered as well. Me and a smaller YouTuber, if anybody's familiar with Elijah Davalos. Suris, 1 second.
So there's actually a couple really good questions in the chat right now. Jared Whitaker asks, what do you think the best method to fighting, not physically, a cult is? And Dr. Zayas says, did you guys know that Heaven's Gate still exists and the remaining members threatened to sue rapper Lil Uzi last year?
I knew about Heaven's Gate still existing because Telltale did some pretty good coverage of them recently and showed that they have people who still manage their website and stuff. As far as the best ways to deal with cults or fight against them, honestly, making information readily available, especially to the individual cult members, if you can manage, is the best way that I've found, because unfortunately, outside of accostement, it's very hard to pull somebody out of a cult. And even if you do so, which granted, accostement is a method that deprogrammers have used, there's a level of consent that is not involved in that behavior. So that can be pretty yikesy and is also a system that is prone for abuse. So I would say just making sure that information's available. If you happen to know a loved one that you think is in a cult and you are very aware of like the individual behaviors they're engaging in and how they reflect being cult-like, then it would be a good idea to have a conversation with them, bring up information, hell, even use Stephen Hassan's research, bring up the bite model, and go through what information you have and let it be very clear when you are talking with them. Hey, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to like tell you don't believe in God or whatever the particular cult has to be. Here in the States, most of them are going to be Christian oriented cults. Let's be honest. One of the biggest things is you have to let them know that you're not trying to force them to change their beliefs. You're just trying to prevent them from being hurt. A lot of times, what we've seen a lot with like the NIFB is they've taken a stance of, oh, if you're trying to prevent me from being part of the NIFB, you're trying to prevent me from being a Christian. And it's like, no, I don't give a rat's ass if you're a Christian. I don't care if you believe in God. These things largely don't have any impact on my life. But you're a part of a cult that's literally advocating for murdering a significant portion of the United States population. That's what I have a problem with. So letting them know that you're not trying to be an ass, you're just trying to stop them from making an ass of themselves, I guess is the best way to say it.
I was curious, why wouldn't something like the Catholic Church fit into the bite model with practices that they have, like doing exorcisms and Jesuits and things like that?
So the reason the Catholic Church in the broad sense doesn't fit is because when you look at the Catholic Church in a broad sense, a lot of it has been very successfully forced into being more progressive about how it operates. Not all of it, and there's certainly sections of Catholicism that I'm perfectly fine labeling cults. Sedevacantism, if you're familiar with that at all, I'm perfectly fine labeling as a cult. They believe that there's not been a true pope in the church since Pius VII, I want to say. That's a brand of Catholicism I'm perfectly fine labeling as a cult. There's a brand that, if anybody's familiar with Nicholas Fuentes, there's a brand that he is associated with that is also very cult-like. I can't remember what their specific style is. Me and a friend of mine were trying to figure it out, but he's not terribly public about what style of Catholic he is. He's just public about his beliefs and which ones are informed by Catholicism. And as a person who has friends who are Catholic, who have masters in theology, a lot of them have kind of gone, well, yeah, he's definitely some flavor of Catholic, but not one that I recognize, and definitely one that I think is dangerous. So the one that he's a part of, I definitely can see many of the behaviors being cult-like enough, and if there's a hierarchical structure there, then yeah, definitely from cult-like to cult. But Catholicism as a whole, labeling the entirety of it as a cult, I think has the same problems as labeling the entirety of Christianity as a cult. You end up having to make a lot of hasty generalizations in order to force the Catholic Church to fit into the bite model that way, when the bite model is supposed to exist on its own. You don't make something comport to it, it comports to the bite model on its own.
Yeah, I've heard people try to say that this sort of mainstreaming, like the modernization of the Catholic Church, fits into the emotional manipulation of getting people into the ranks just in a gentler appearing way, which I thought was an interesting argument.
So there's only so far you can go with gentler appearing until you finally just get to actually gentler. Maybe that's just the pragmatist in me speaking, but there's only so far you can go performatively when you accidentally start slipping into functionally.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what's happened with the Catholic Church as of late, is that it also helps that we've had a handful of progressive popes. I think that's been a large influence there. That's caused them to be a little less cult-like and a little more just problematic on their own for their own reasons, but certainly not quite as far into the cult behavior that we've seen in the past. We're certainly not getting the Inquisitions again yet.
Would you have considered them a cult like 50 years ago, 60? Like how far back do you think you'd have to go to say, oh yeah, they were definitely still a cult at that point in time?
It depends on the pope that was in state at the time and how authoritarian that particular pope was in his policies, and how either conservative or regressive you would like to label the particular policies. If you asked me to take a pin and stick on a particular point in time, I'd have to do a lot more study into the Catholic Church's history to give you an honest answer.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've heard people sort of like mischaracterize that kind of thing, so I thought it would be interesting to address.
Well, and I noticed you mentioned Mormons too when you were discussing cults. Where are they on the bite scale?
Oh, they fit the bite model, I think.
They fit the bite model pretty well. If I were to pull the stuff up, let's see here. Do they promote dependence and obedience? Well, yes. In fact, actually, they send people on trips. For anybody who's familiar with Don Bluth, the creator of Land Before Time, American Tail, Fievel Goes West, a lot of really beloved films that came out around the time that the Disney Renaissance hadn't quite started yet. He was one of the few people able to actually like fist fight Disney for a little bit. Don Bluth actually had to restart his animation career almost from the ground up at Disney, because as a Mormon, they told him that he needed to stop everything he was doing and go and do a 2 fucking year mission trip. That is certainly an exercised level of control I would find somewhat problematic. And that's a public figure that most people know because he's had a hand in many of their childhoods. Modifying behavior with rewards and punishments. Yeah, that's a thing that they definitely do. Restricting or controlling sexuality. There's a reason that Mormons are some of the poster children for purity culture. Restricting leisure time and activities, again, because they do have a lot of their activities that are centered around going out and evangelizing. That's certainly a thing that they do. Instilling black and white thinking. Depending on which Mormon church you're in, this could be more of an issue. On the whole, though, things like teaching thought-stopping techniques is something that the Mormon church definitely does as well. They have I'm sure everybody's familiar with the South Park episode around the Mormon church, or even
that was a dumb.
Even the musical that happened around the Mormon church. Flick it off like a light switch. It's a handy little Mormon trick. It may be a song making fun of the Mormon church, but it's rooted in a little more reality than you think. Rejecting rational analysis. I think literally every apologetic that has ever come out about the 3 and 7 witnesses is most certainly a rejection of rational analysis and critical thinking and doubt. If you move into information control, generating and using propaganda extensively, that is definitely a thing a Mormon church does. They have their own setup, not unlike the Watchtower Society. Forbidding you.
They've got their own freaking channel where they do their own private, basically PSAs for just Mormons.
Yeah.
So does the JWs. They actually now just pump out synchronized broadcasts for all their kingdom halls instead of doing like individual talks as often, which is really creepy.
It is. It's very. All you need is a little bit of you need a little bit more forcefulness, and you just have Christian flavored Clockwork Orange at that point. But using information gained in confession sessions against you, if memory serves, that is a thing that the Mormon Church does engage in pretty heavily. If you are in violation of some of their more Puritan principles, and that happens in confession, that can be used. But that one, I'm less solid on. Shunning you if you disobey or believe. Yeah, there's actually there's a whole thing with the Mormon church where like you pursue somebody as long as you think you can get them into the church, but as soon as you think that they're a lost cause, then you practically abandon them completely. So shower you with praise and attention, love bombing. I don't think that they're quite as guilty of love bombing. What they do is a little more subtle. They have the poster child look for Mormonism is an incredibly positive, like family-friendly image, and it's less that you get love bombed than it's more that you gravitate towards that very loving atmosphere that's 100% artificial.
I mean, I've known a few Mormons, and I've actually attended some of their services with morbid curiosity. They definitely loved bombed at the places that I went to. They'll do like little like meals or like potluck sort of style things in some of the local areas, and anybody that goes that's new, everybody's going over and hugging them and saying how happy they are to see them. You know, like very like love that.
Fair enough. I don't know.
That depends on the location, though.
I had another question for Suris. Where, like, do you think that Scientology would fit the bite model? And also, what about like MLMs, multi-level marketing? And because I've seen some people say that you could even apply the bite model to those, and it would be one of the rare examples of it not applying to a religious type of organization, or if it would be more like just a cult mindset without actually tipping over into an actual cult. So 2-part question: MLMs and Scientology.
So Scientology, yes. In fact, actually, one of the people who was responsible in some of the hierarchical structure actually had a hard time escaping and like being pursued in an effort to leave the main compound. Not to mention, there's also the whole. If we actually look at the bite model, I know one of the easiest examples of this. The part about taking information that is used in confessions and using it against you in information control, that's a thing that Scientology does to a T. For those who are not familiar with the structure of Scientology, one of the goals is to make it to a status called clear. That is where you have discovered all of your past lives. You've discovered everything about your past. You've discovered everything about your past lives. They definitely believe that you have many past lives. Usually the information that you build around these lives is very artificial, but their techniques in trying to get you through these sessions coax the information out of you anyway, and it's very pressing. Things like, what do you see? Okay, I see a door. Okay, open the door. What do you see? I see nothing. No, what do you see in the door? I see a cowboy. Okay, cool. You were probably a cowboy in the past life. What was your name? I don't know. No, what was your name? And they'll push you into it. In being that push you with the information, they'll find information about your life and your past, like whether or not you had an affair, whether or not you may have cheated to gain something in life. And they hold that. And there's videos of people who've left the Church of Scientology being harassed and followed by members who are currently in the church, using the information that was given during their sessions trying to get closer to clear status, used against them, and that information being disseminated against them. So I definitely think that they fit the model, because there's behaviors that we can pinpoint like very, very easily that fit it to a T. As far as MLMs, some MLMs I'm perfectly fine calling a cult of some type. Thrive is a good example of this. I did a video on them a while back. If any of you are familiar with Aflac skirts nightmarishly close. For those who don't know, I used to actually be an Aflac salesman. Now, did I ever make a sale? No. Turns out I'm a horrible fucking liar, so it's really hard for me to sell insurance. But I got to spend a lot of time, several months, in desperate attempt to make a single sale. I got to spend several months just ingrained in the culture of that company, and many of the techniques that were used were things like love bombing. As an example, my region manager invited anybody who was new to his house, and also invited like everybody in the region to the house, so that they could have this really big, happy family atmosphere that you were part of. You weren't coming into work, you were coming into a family. And then, of course, because you were coming into a family, you wanted to work harder, because this isn't work, this is your family. Other things like when you're going into training, learning how to be incredibly pushy about everything that you're doing. They weren't terribly big with information control and emotional control, but definitely behavior and thought they hit on pretty hard. They used a lot of cult-like techniques to make their situation that you were working with better.
What sort of insurance does that? I'm not familiar with the. With them.
So Aflac is primarily life insurance, though they also have dental and health plans and stuff like that.
Isn't that inherently emotional control, though? If you're like sort of dangling somebody's potential health needs.
Oh, true. But the thing is that when you're doing the Aflac thing, you're using those techniques on other people to get them to buy into a policy. I'm talking about the experience of the people working within that company.
Oh, okay, fair. Yeah.
There is, I think the most telling part was that a lot of people who work in insurance, who work as brokers, sell more than one type of insurance. I actually got in contact with several people who worked in the industry, and they would be responsible for selling, say, Mercury car insurance, and also various types of health insurance, stuff like that. And this is a way that they could make ends meet, because you weren't dependent on exactly one type of insurance. If a customer was willing to come in to get only that thing, you'd be a broker for multiple types of insurance. Well, at Aflac, the exact language used by my regional manager was, that's what other people do to survive, but here at Aflac, we like to drink the Kool-Aid.
Oh, God.
And I was just like, do you now? Okay.
Wasn't it Flavor Aid and not actually Kool-Aid?
During the Heaven's Gate incident, it was Flavor Aid, or Jonestown incident.
Jonestown, yeah. But no, so did you work for Aflac before or after they gave Gilbert Gottfried the boot for being the voice actor for the Aflac duck?
I'm not 100% certain, but I know that the Aflac duck that I was given most certainly did have Gilbert Gottfried's voice in the voice box.
Oh, man. Now I'm thinking about my... I know somebody that they're very close to me, and they sent me a link of Gilbert Gottfried reading 50 Shades of Grey, and I don't have enough brain bleach to get that out. Like, there's the delete button's not working.
So just so you know, fun story, this Monday when I did my dissertation on biblical gender roles article that said that dating is cruel for men, apparently. I did that with my friend Renita Chan, and as he got into like parts of his article that sounded like badly written smut, I actually started playing the Gilbert Godfrey reads 50 Shades of Grey video in the background, which
You're
led,
so mean.
which
So
led
mean.
to somebody in my chat saying, "Wait, I have a question. Is there a How would 50 Shades of Grey sound if it was read in the stereotypical epic trailer voice?" As it turns out, I actually know somebody who professionally does that voice. So I got them to send me clips of that. So if anybody who can play those clips would like me to, or can tell me how to do that through here, I can definitely force you guys to listen to some horribleness.
You can send me a link.
Misery loves company, so you're miserable. You want to make the rest of us miserable. I'm just kidding. Is the mic better now? I switched it because it was
Much better, yeah.
coming through my it was coming through my webcam rather than my headset. So there was no point in wearing the headset other than hearing you guys. I mean, which I guess is point in and of itself. If I felt like listening to you guys.
All depends on who was talking.
Aw, I love you, Nick. Mwah.
Oh, thank you. Back at you.
So the question, David, am I sending this monstrosity to you?
Yeah, I should be able to get it to pop through.
All right, that's your funeral. Here you go. I just sent it.
To where?
That's not letting me send. I can't send it over Twitter. Maybe I can send it over Discord though. That's the thing I can do.
Yeah.
So
could you not link it in the Hangout chat?
It's not. It's a file on my computer.
It
Oh.
wouldn't play.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll play this line 6 here.
Sitting beside me, he gently pulls my sweatpants down, up and down like a horse's drawers. My subconscious remarks bitterly. In my head, I tell her where to go. Christian squirts baby oil into his hand and then rubs kind tenderness. From makeup remover to soothing balm for a spanked ass.
I am so hot right now.
Sitting beside me.
There you go.
This was requested on my stream, and I just happen to know the people who could do the job.
That is horrible.
Yeah, that's traumatizing.
Can we kill it with fire, please?
I don't think. Yeah, I'm never gonna have sex again. I think that's pretty much it. Oh my god.
I mean,
so voluntary celibacy.
So
I don't know if the celibacy is forced on you by a horrible reading of 50 Shades of Grey, was that voluntary?
Yeah, I had no choice in that. I feel like my ears.
I think we all need an adult here. Like I feel violated. I need an adult.
I'm very sorry that I may have sent another line to David.
Oh god.
Oh, okay.
Firstly, I don't make love. I fuck hard.
All right, so
am I the only one here that's waiting for more lines? I'm interested.
Yes, you're the only one here that's waiting for more lines. And so what I think we need to do now is Ansgar will be dropping links for mental health services and counseling in the description, and you'll find it in the live chat. And we highly recommend that there's anyone with PTSD or any serious issues as a result of having heard that, please feel free to make yourself avail yourself of these services.
But like, how would we know if we had serious issues? Because we were all pretty much fucked in the head to begin with. So I mean, like before and after.
Well, I'm pretty sure that Nick's now an incel and Kyle's now a deviant. Like, so it seems to have gone both ways.
Giggity.
Yeah.
Like you could clip this segment later, and you could just cap it off at the end with the Red Robin thing, like Red Robin. Mm.
I think you need the Affleck duck. Well, what I think so. Is that available on your channel?
Those lines.
Or well, how much you? That was a friend of yours who did that, right? How much of that is available?
There's at least 2 more minutes of audio, and they are all on the live stream that I did on Monday.
Okay. So now anyone who wants to who's any masochist
Anyone
out
who's a
there,
glutton for punishment.
yeah, wants to see how long before they're bleeding out their ears, you now know where you can get the rest of this. So here's the only thing that would potentially be worse is that the guy who did the voice of the original G.I. Joe, Commander Flint, in the original G.I. Joe cartoon was a good friend of mine. He's a voice actor named Bill Ratner, and yeah, I think having Commander Flint read those voices might be more traumatizing, but not by much.
What about Cobra? Wouldn't Cobra also be up
Commander
there?
Flint. So we worked at a summer camp. We both worked at a summer camp for a while, and we did sketches with him as Commander Flint, and confiscating a porno magazine with Lady Jane in it, and it got. I'm not sure it was necessarily appropriate summer camp material, but
If only Mel Blanc was still alive to do the whole reading as Daffy Duck.
Oh, that's right. That's what, yeah.
He did all the really.
It's okay. We'll get readings from Goofy. That'll work.
That actually reminds me of a story. Actually, I have a friend. He's a voice actor. He works for Funimation, and you guys probably, like, if you watch any anime, have at least heard him. Like, he was the original Toonami Tom. He did the voice of Krillin in Dragon Ball Z. He was Maze Hughes in Full Metal Alchemist. He's the voice of Kuro Sensei in Assassination Classroom. So he's got like a huge body of work. His name's Sunny Straight, and I actually was hanging out with him at a convention that we were both at, and I got him to leave a voicemail because Maze Hughes was one of my friend's favorite characters. So I got him to leave a voicemail for him, basically saying, "Oh, sorry you missed the convention. You didn't get to see all the pictures of my beautiful daughter Alicia."
You didn't get to see my daughter Alicia.
Exactly. It was amazing. Oh, it was so great.
There's something he has a purview for taking father figures who have a penchant for not living terribly long.
Didn't he get embroiled in him and some of the other Dragon Ball Z voice actors in some recent controversy, some leaked audio?
I'm not sure if he was involved in that. I would have to look into that because I didn't hear anything about it.
Pretty sure that Flynn's voice was one of them.
I think that's been mostly focused on just Vic Mignogna, hasn't it?
Yeah,
No,
I thought it was just Vic.
No,
and honestly, I met Vic.
Was Goku, it was Krillin's voice, it was...
well, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I have several personal problems with Sean Schemmel.
Yeah, and there was... who else? I think it was the person who does Bulma as well.
Oh, yeah, I can't remember her name off the top of my head. But, no, I mean, I've met Vic and actually went out to dinner with him and a few others. And honestly, I don't know, something about him just always rubbed me the wrong way. It was like just an instant dislike. I mean, I was professional and everything because I was one of the volunteers for the anime convention that was going on at Embry-Riddle that year. They actually closed down that anime convention like 2 years after the year I helped work on it. But so I actually went out to dinner with him and half dozen other voice actors or manga artists and stuff. And like, yeah, just, I don't know, something about him always rubbed me the wrong way.
All right, well, listen, we're getting up to a little past the hour mark, so what I'm thinking is it's around midnight where I am, and
Same.
so, yeah, I think we can start to wrap it up. I mean, if anyone wants to hang out in the chat after this, you guys close that out for a while. I think after shut down. But anyone who wants to stick around, they can. But if anyone had any last questions for Suris before we let him go, because he's been extraordinarily gracious with his time, which we appreciate. He may not want to come back now. I was like, oh God, they roped me into this after party thing, and then we're playing this. He's gonna wake up tomorrow. I was like, was that real? Play back
Yeah, I've got a question for Suris.
Sure.
Just let me know if you've already spoken about it. I did have to skip away for a bit there, but just wondering if you wanted to comment a little bit or give us a couple of examples. You spoke about deprogramming, but we didn't really mention much about programming techniques. Just as a subtle example, one that the Jehovah's Witnesses use, they like to replace the name Jehovah with Jehovah's organization. And they'll actually move back and forward between those two terms very freely.
Until you equivocate the two yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And just thought I'd like to hear if you've got any other interesting ones that you might want to mention.
I think that particular one is called I think that's a type of desensitization, where you very subtly introduce this idea to somebody, but you introduce it in a way that's very milquetoast. And when you do, the propensity for a knee-jerk reaction slowly goes away. So when you say Jehovah's organization needs this a year into the future, they are so desensitized to it, they can't think of the difference between Jehovah and Jehovah's organization. So, that I know desensitizing is one that's used. Gaslighting is one that is used pretty heavily. Trying to think of other, obviously there's blackmail as a programming method is one, especially if you're getting into like Scientology. Blackmail is a programming method they'll use because many of your behaviors can be informed or otherwise motivated by reciprocal action.
Jehovah's Witness is a big one.
Yeah, Jehovah's
the threat of shunning.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting.
When you're looking at least sort of the psychological deprogramming methods, they're in many ways sort of a mirror image of the programming methods, right? You're using the same.
They're reverse engineered, essentially.
Yeah, like if you look at, and I mean, it depends on who you're looking into because some of them have varying degrees of accuracy in their information. But if you look at people who have written about occult deprogramming and whatnot in the past, a lot of the potential methodologies that are used to deprogram are just using the same techniques in a different way, right? Because it's sort of like the analogy of you can use a shovel to plant a garden or bury a body kind of thing. They're just tools, and really sort of the intention behind them is what matters more.
Yeah, it's sometimes the intention is what matters, and sometimes you go for the consequence. But I guess that really depends on what type of moral system you agree with.
Yeah. There's a number of viewpoints.
Yeah. And I guess I'm just sort of looking at from a debunking point of view. It's good to be able to recognize the techniques, to be able to counter them.
Well, there's I forget what the book is called, but my friend Drag is actually really familiar with it. There's a logic class that he went to in college, and instead of handing them like a book on fallacies or a book on any particular epistemology or handing them a copy of Plato's Republic or anything like that, what they did in that particular class was they handed them a book that basically taught you how to lie and manipulate people. And the purpose of it was instead of being able to point out when somebody's wrong because they're engaging in a fallacy, they let them study this book that taught you how to lie, manipulate, and do all this other stuff so that you were able to recognize all of those things that were done. Because it's easy to, it's easy to recognize when somebody's equivocating, especially if they're being a bad faith actor, if you know how equivocation works. But it's equally easy to know when somebody's equivocating when you understand from a book that teaches you how to equivocate in order to get somebody to do something that you want. That's another way to make it very obvious when somebody's doing it, because you've researched the book, you've researched the technique from the inside out, as opposed to looking at it from the outside in.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a level of reverse engineering that goes into a lot of that.
The same as like if you learn something like mentalism. I used to be a magician, so if you have a background in mentalism, a lot of the techniques that are used there, like information gathering, using certain types of leading statements,
how to use a cold read,
how to do cold reading, how to like feedback people's like the subtle things that they're saying so that it feels like you know them better, how to like create a sense of rapport rapidly with people, like all that kind of stuff. And when you know how to do it, you see it being done in very obvious, like if you watch a faith healing group, you're like, oh gee, like, or like people like Peter Popoff and stuff like that, because they use a mixture of just straight up fraud.
Isn't it weird that Peter Popoff is still around?
I know, considering that he was so thoroughly exposed. But
would it be just speculation, or do you think we're pretty right in assuming that all of these organizations, JW, Scientology, that they would actually have specialists or people at the top who are working on these sort of programming techniques actively? Is it just, or is it more inherently built into the beliefs and the religion itself, do you think?
I think it's a combination of both. There's a quote that I've used and I've heard here for a while. When it comes to cults, when it comes to like mystery religions, when it comes to a lot of these flavors of control, you're either a deceiver, a propagator of misinformation, or you are a deceived, a consumer of misinformation. However, the longer these organizations go on, the harder it is to tell the line between the two. And in many cases, sometimes there isn't one. So many of your, while Scientology, for instance, began, or even like Mormonism is probably a better example because it's been around for a little longer. If you look at Mormonism, I guarantee you Joseph Smith knew he was full of shit. Like I don't think there's any question that Joseph Smith knew he was selling a con. However, because that con has gone on for so long, as opposed to Joseph Smith, who was most certainly a deceiver and most certainly not a deceived, by the time we get to the modern day, I think it would be very hard to look at the leaders of the Mormon society and see them as strictly just deceivers. I think there's certainly a level of the deceived there as well. If not, they are fully that way while also being disseminators. So I don't know. I guess it really depends on how long that organization's out. Obviously, at the beginning, more than likely, it's a one-way street, but I think that it becomes a two-way street the longer and further along you go down time.
Have you ever? I read something a while back, and I don't know 100% what the accuracy of it was, but there was an account about the Mormon church from some folks that said during like the early church with Joseph Smith that they did like some kind of a sacramental ritual of some sort, and they suspect they were dosing people with some sort of hallucinogen or psilocybin or some sort of thing.
I've heard about that, but I have not. It's one of those things that I've heard about it in about as much detail as you've just told me now.
Yeah.
Not enough for me to pull in from. I do know that there was some stuff in the early, if memory serves, there was a lot of stuff in the early days of Mormonism where Joseph Smith was taking on multiple wives as well, and his primary wife didn't terribly approve of it. So there is certainly a level of power dynamic usage that was happening there. As far as the psilocybin thing goes, I know about as much about that as I do about the multiple partners thing that he was engaging in at that time. I know that these are things that have floated around as stories about him from that era. but I don't know the details enough to actually say whether they happened or not. I'm inclined to agree they did because I know that he's a piece of garbage, and I'm willing to accept that a piece of garbage like that would drug his followers. I'm willing to accept that a piece of garbage like that would most certainly use his position of power in order to gain extra partners that his wife didn't approve of or didn't want, but she just kind of accepted that she was with somebody in a position of power and this is the situation she had to deal with. I'm willing to accept that those are things within his character.
Yeah, no, there was an article written about it, among some of their other kookier beliefs, like the Quaker people that lived on the moon that were at war with the people that lived on the planets, the sun.
I too have played Final Fantasy IV. Yes.
Right.
All right. Well, I think what I'm going to do is with that, I'm going to close it out. But like I said, anyone who is in the hangout right now who wants to stay with us, as long as Cirrus wants to stay, and even after he bails, I think last time you guys went until 6 a.m. If I remember.
I mean, technically, I stayed with Dave until 9 a.m. Mikey bailed at like 6.
I'm definitely going to go ahead and hop out because I've got some more errands around the house that need to get done.
Can I ask you one more question, Cirrus?
Sure, as long as
What
it's not
kind
one that
of-
requires a lot of information.
No. What kind of online games do you play, and do you play League of Legends?
I have an unhealthy obsession with League of Legends. My main character, I main Lulu, Twisted Fate, Taric, and Hecarim. Although I do not play any of them in the way that they probably should be. I play all of them as junglers, and I enjoy
I
having
suck
fun
at
from there.
jungle. I just bought Diana today, and I played her for the first time, and I actually did really good. But I main Yumi, Soraka, Urgot, and Misfortune. And then for mid, I'm kind of like, I mean, I'll play Ari or Veigar, For jungle, either Kindred or Evelynn. But now I've got Diana, so I can do her jungle too. And if you notice, I actually have my friend Chris has the other half of this, but I have Wolf's Mask and he's got Lamb's
Oh,
Mask
he's got
because we
Lamb's
both
Mask.
love Kindred. So.
I'll be honest, I used to be a big Evelynn player before they reworked her. The current version of Evelynn, while a better character, I'm not as big a fan of.
Because she can't really lane, like it's jungle or nothing, or just the way they did her kit.
Not only can she not lane, they removed all of the AD scaling from her kit, and I was a Triforce Evelynn player, where I would get Triforce and crit items and just run it, because she gained max attack speed from her E. So
right.
the old Evelynn that I played was not, hey, let me do AP burst. It was, hey, let me be an AD carry for 2 seconds and kill somebody, and then run away really fast and pretend that that's a good method of play.
Yeah, no, like I honestly just started playing in April and I'm already like level 80 something. Because like when I commit to something, I go balls to the wall, like pedal to the metal right off the cliff. So I'll play a couple of games a day at least. Like I'll grind it out, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. So yeah, thank you. And maybe we can friend list on there. So if I see you on and you're looking for a support,
sure,
a support main, I'll totally play with you.
Most of what I'm doing right now is
that could be taken out of context. That last line there, the "I'll totally play with you." So
yeah,
I meant the game.
I think with Cirrus, that may be very
specific.
much in context, but yes.
I mean, if I hear I'll play with you, my immediate thought is going to be video games. So.
All right. Well, thank you again, Cirrus, for joining us. Thank you, everyone in the live chat. Thank you, everyone in the hangout. And we look forward to seeing you guys, the patrons in particular, tomorrow. And for those of you who wish to join us for the UBI, which has already now been rather contentious in the green room before this started. So we look forward to talking with you guys then. And have yourselves a wonderful evening.
Good night.